So hi, Mat050 folks. So we're going to continue with 9.1, and we were talking about slope, and I graphed all those points, and so let's just talk about what kind of slope it is before we move on. So the first one, I believe, was point -1, 2. -1, 2. So it was this graph, or this line rather, and you can see if we start at the farthest left, you can see it climbing upward, so this is a positive slope. I'll just put a nice plus there. Okay, and then the second line was a -4, -2, -2, -2, -4, -2, and then -2, -2. So it's this pink line. Because it's a straight line, we call that a zero slope. So any straight line is a zero slope. And maybe you can remember that if you think about skiing. A zero slope has no up, no down. It's kind of like cross-country skiing, where you're using a lot of energy to go forward, but you're not really going up or down. All right, and then the third one was a point -3, 3. So -3, 3, and then we ended here with a +2, -1. So this blue line you can see is falling from left to right. So this is a negative slope. Okay. And then the fourth one was number 11, and we had a -1, -4. -1, -4, and then our second point was a +1, 5, and so even though it's not a huge positive slope, it still is a positive slope because you can see from the left it's going upwards, so that would be a positive slope. And then the last one gave us a -2, -2, and then it also had a -2, -4. So this was our line. This is called an undefined slope. So an undefined slope is not a zero slope. It's undefined because when you do this mathematically, you would have a 0 in the denominator. So anytime you have a 0 in the denominator, you know mathematically that's undefined. And so as a slope, it would also be undefined. And if you think about skiing down an undefined slope, it can't be done, just like you can't divide by 0, right? It would be disastrous. Okay, so that's it for the handout that I gave you. So the next thing I'm going to do is to go over some things from your book. So if you would open your book to page 655. We are going to work on making some lines with some points. So go ahead and open your book. Okay, so we're going to do it by using some of the tables. So I'm going to have you look at number 36 on page 655. And you can see that it has a table, and that table gives us choices to make points on the line. Sometimes you have to choose the numbers yourself, but to get you started, they're choosing them for you. So we have an x-coordinate of a -2, and then we have a -1, and then we have a 0, and let's go ahead and we'll practice maybe one more. I'm going to skip down to the last one that they gave you, which was a 3. Okay, so what you do with this is you look at the equation that they gave, which is y is equal to x minus 1. And you're going to use these x's to find the y coordinate. And so we're solving for y, And so we're going to put a -2 where the x was. So we have a -2 minus 1. So that would give you a -3. So y then would be equal to a -3. So our first point that we're going to put on the line is a -2, -3. -2, -3. Okay, then we go ahead and solve the same equation, only this time we're going to substitute a -1 where the x is. So y is equal to a -1 minus 1. So a -1 minus 1 is the same thing as a -1 plus a -1, which gives you y is equal to a -2. So our next point is a -1, -2, be right there. Okay. Then our third point, the x is going to be 0. So we have y is equal to 0 minus 1. 0 minus 1 is just a -1, so y is equal to a -1. Here's our 0, here's our -1. Okay, and then the last point that we're going to do is y is equal to 3 minus 1. So 3 minus 1 is 2, so y would equal 2. So we have 1, 2, 3, and then we have 2, 1, 2. And so now we can graph that. Let's see, there we go. And you can see that it makes a straight line. And that line, remember, it begins on the left, it's climbing upward, so it is a, yes, I heard it, a positive slope. So this is a positive slope. Okay, let's try another one of those. So let's look at, why don't we look at number 38? So number 38 gives us the line y is equal to a -x. And then it also gives us a table. I think I'll write the table down here this time. So we've got some x choices and some y choices. So the first x choice that they give you is a -2. The second x choice that they give you is a -1. I'm going to go ahead and add one more. Usually 3 points is what you need to make a line. So I'll just use the 3 at the bottom. Okay, so this is going to be a pretty easy equation to solve because we've got y is equal to a -x. So if x is equal to a -2, because there's a negative there, so this would be like that. So y is equal to, well, a negative times a negative is a positive, and so y is equal to a +2. Okay. So if x is equal to a -1, so we already have that negative, and so I have to substitute it with another negative. So we get plus plus, so y is equal to a +1. I bet you can see what's happening there. For every one, it's probably going to be opposite. But let's go ahead and try it with the third point, just to be sure. So if y is equal to a -x, and it's a +3, so y is equal to, that's going to be a -3. So this will be an easy one to plot. So we've got x is a -2, y is a +2. X was a -2, y is a +2. X is a -1, y is a +1. X is a +3, and y is a -3. connect those. But you can see it's a straight line. You can also see that the line is falling, and so it is a negative slope. Okay, let's do one more. Let's do number 40. Okay, so number 40, we have y is equal to x plus 3. And so again, we're going to have our choices. So we've got x, y, and for this, we've got a negative 6, 0, and 3. Okay, so again, we use our equation. We have the x's. So we've got y is equal to a negative 6 plus 3. So y is equal to a negative 3. I'll write that equation again, only I'll substitute the x for the 0. Y then is equal to a positive 3. And then the last one, we'll substitute the 3. Y is equal to 3 plus 3. So y is equal to 6. Okay, and so we'll go ahead and use our graph. We have a negative 6, negative 3, 0, 3, and 3, 6. We can connect those points. And you can see, again, from our left point, it's going up, so it's a positive slope. Okay. All right, now, as you're doing your homework, you're probably going to come across some like 42 and 43 and 45, which they're not giving you choices. They're just having you graph. And so what you're going to need to do is you're going to have to do a little experimenting. So let's look at 42. Get a new graph. So on 42, we've got y is equal to x plus 3. And we're going to make some choices. Okay. And so it's always good to start with x equaling 0, because generally the line is at some point is going to usually cross the y-intercept or the x-intercept, and so this would be allowing it to cross the x-intercept. And so if x is 0, then it would be y is equal to 3. Okay, so I've got my first point, 0, positive 3. Okay. Then what we could do is also figure out, you know what, unless it's a 0 slope, it's going to cross the x-intercept, or unless it's an undefined slope. So let's go ahead, or not the x-intercept, but the y-intercept. So let's go ahead and figure out what the y-intercept would be by putting a 0 underneath the y. So this time we're going to be solving for x instead of y. And I erased the equation. Oh, I think it was y is equal to x plus 3. That was silly of me. Okay, so we're going to have a 0 there is equal to x plus 3. This time we're solving for x, so we're going to take away the 3, take away the 3. So a negative 3 is equal to x. So then our point would be a negative 3, 0. So now we have an x-intercept, we've got a y-intercept, and now you can kind of look at the graph and say, oh my gosh, I wonder where another point might be. Our slope at this point would be 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 3, 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I'm thinking another point would be there. So I'm going to try that. I'm going to figure out what if x is 3. So if x is 3, I didn't need to erase those. So y is equal to 3 plus 3, so y is equal to 6. And so our point would be 3, 6. Ah, look, it was a point, okay? And all you really need are 3 points. So we could connect those. And what kind of a slope is that? And I think I can hear you shouting from the mountains of Colorado and from the cities that this is a positive slope. You can see it going up. Okay. All right, so that's all we have for 9.1. If you do have some questions, send me either an email or a text, and I'll be looking forward to hearing from you during our Zoom meeting. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.